there. So we're back again today. And today we're going to be talking about how you can navigate forward through those transition phases in life. Maybe like me, I recently was blessed and I was able to stop working. It's actually been over a month now, but I was telling Caleb just yesterday that I can probably count on both hands how many days I've actually been able to be at home all over the place and taking care of my dad who just had surgery, and then just a lot of stuff going on right now. And then you also have some transitions coming up in your life that I'll let you talk about here in just a minute. But I just thought we could kind of talk about how to navigate forward through those things that can cause fear, anxiety, and be hard. And kind of related to that is all the emotions that go with that. So without further ado, we want to start the conversation.
Well, so our transition news is that we're pregnant, and so having a baby soon. Me and my wife, not me and my mom. Okay, making sure. So yes, and I believe that the updated due date is November 5th, I believe it, if I remember that correctly. And so that is some really big news, and so obviously, whenever I heard the news, my first emotion was excitement. I did cry a little bit.
Just a little bit?
Just a little bit. So, just because we had been trying for over 8 months, to get pregnant and everything, and so just the fact that it actually happened was incredible, so a blessing from God. But soon after that excitement, that happiness, came that moment of, oh crap, we're gonna have a baby. Like, it's really good, but also some of it. And so, my mind is more on the logistics, the financial, all that stuff of it. And so we're not struggling right now, but also our house is adequate for where we want to be. This is not where I, see us living long term. And so that was one of the other things I was like, that may have to go on the back burner as we try to figure this out, and then move and then see what God opens up for us in the future. Because obviously we can make this, work for our home right now, but this is not where I want us to be, forever. And so that kind of stuff. Then also I'm a teacher, and so teachers don't make, $100,000 a year. And so if we go down to one income, it would just be mine, so it's all of that stuff was soon after that. I don't think it was the night up. I think the second night after I found out, I was just laying in bed until like 2 a.m., 2:30 a.m. and I'm just resting all this stuff. And my wife's next to me, like dead asleep. And I was like, wake up. Why are you not thinking about this like I am? But yeah, so just having all of those thoughts, and ultimately you just gotta leave it to God. That doesn't mean that you don't take actions. They need to, and so start to think about those things, whatever actions you can take on your own. But ultimately there are just certain things that you have to do your best at, and then leave it to God. And so finding that balance between what can I actually do, to meet some of these needs, but still having that faith to leave it in God's hands. That's the balance that I think a lot of us, but yeah.
I noticed it became even more real to me after, for those of you that maybe are just learning more about us, Caleb was in a traumatic accident with our other son in 2015, and Jacob passed away on the scene. Caleb almost did. That's a whole nother story. I don't want to go down. But I remember after the accident, within the first couple days, like super deep cleaning my house that was already clean. And I remember thinking to myself something along these lines: I can't control all the other stuff that was going on with you at the time, but I can control my house. I can clean my house. And thinking about what you just said, it makes me think that sometimes, especially when things are kind of spiraling out, or like transitions in life that you just don't feel like you're in control, sometimes all you can do is what you can do. And then you have to trust the rest to God. And I know with me, that was not a one and done thing. There were lots of times when I had to come back to prayer and give something over to God again. That when he would bring it to my mind or whatever, and I'd realize that I'm starting to worry about it, or I'm starting to fret. And then I'd be like, all I can do is what I can do. And then there comes a point where God has to take up the rest. And, my husband's a pastor, so his dad's a pastor. And how he'll say something along the lines of, praying should be our first resort, but so many times it's the last resort.
We tried everything else on our own and our own ability, everything. Well, in the next brings up kind of the verse that says we should be praying without ceasing. And, just obviously that doesn't mean that we can't do anything else in life. Yeah. But what that means is that whenever those thoughts come, those moments kind of creep up, to bring it to God. And so at the beginning of your grief process or your transition or whatever it may be, that may be 14 times a day. And it's not, that you're just laying everything out, but you're bringing that back to God again and again and again. But as you move on, you should be able to get some of that clarity back. And that may, begin to be only, a few times a day or even once a day about that kind of issue. I think that that's what that verse, more means in our lives where we're so busy. We can't be so busy that we leave God out of it, or we reach out to him at the last second or chance or whatever once we've gone through everything else.
I don't remember if it was our Bible study that we just did recently, if it was one of the sermons that your dad preached recently, but he was talking about the scripture that Paul wrote in, I think it's in Philippians, where he talks about whatever is pure, whatever is good, whatever is noble, think on those things. And the Bible that I was using at the time was the Message translation. And one of the things I liked about it is it specifically said, like, instead of anxiety, think on peace. Like, it had the opposite. And then your dad had also pulled in some other verses too that Paul, from different books. And I was thinking, like, no wonder Paul had so many things so many times he referenced about our thoughts, because it's a common thing. Like, a lot of it starts here. So how we process life, a lot of it's going to start here, what we choose to dwell on. And like you said, sometimes you may have to do it 14, 15 times a day, but like exercise, the more you do it, the better you're going to get at it, and the more easier it's going to be to turn to God when those anxious thoughts come. So it's good stuff.
Yeah. Well, and then, yesterday I took a good little drive, so there and back was about 45 minutes, and I just needed to have that kind of space. And, so whenever I was with you on the phone yesterday, I think I brought up that, to me, whenever I actually drive places, that helps me to focus and think, because I can only really focus on the driving and on, prayer or thinking or whatever I need to get done. You know what I'm saying? And so I can't really be distracted by other things. So whether that be, YouTube or Netflix
or your to-do list.
Yes. Or just, because if you're at home, sometimes you get so caught up in what you got to do. So, the dishes are vacuuming or in the bathrooms or doing all the stuff, or, for ministry and for church or even for your job, all those things. And they can distract you from what you really need to do, which is to get a hold of God and reach out to him, and then just begin to think. Sometimes I think of it like I'm praying almost, because I'm just thinking through whatever's causing me, to feel anxious or, even mad or frustrated sometimes, being a newlywed. So we're only in this for less than a year. You're bringing together two people that are very different. And so sometimes you have to figure out how to deal with those differences, those arguments, those frustrations in the right way. And so we haven't always done that, but sometimes I just need a moment or a few minutes to process it, and so does my wife. And so if you take those moments now, instead of bottling them up, because I have, friends that bottle them up for months, and then they have this humongous fight, 6 months, 8 months, a year, however long it is after the initial thing started.
Right.
And so I would rather deal with it right then. And so take that time, process to it, and come back together where you're more calm, and then have that conversation. And so sometimes that means that you come back together and you're calm, and then it kind of ratchet back up again, and you need to take another little break. And so, but I think that that's worth it to get some of those foundational things sorted out. Mm-hmm. And so that you don't keep having the same fights, and really all that you're fighting over is outward stuff whenever you haven't dealt with the foundational reason for the fight. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so finding out what that is, I think that that's a major thing too. In my limited knowledge of marriage, I think that that's the major thing, is finding out a foundation. Okay, why are we actually fighting?
Right.
And that means that you have to be honest with yourself and say, "Oh, I'm really prideful," or in this area, I'm really insecure. And because if you can identify that, the next time you feel that kind of rising up, you can combat it at the source. Mm-hmm. So why am I so prideful about this whenever everything I do should be coming from God anyway? And so just combating that, it's a lot easier said than done.